Greetings! In this video we're going to be talking about advanced data analytics and visualization using Python. This video is primarily going to be focusing on the data analytics piece using the Numpy module, and in follow-on videos we'll show you how to use another module called matplotlib in order to visualize that data in interesting ways. Above all, however, we want this lesson to teach you about the value of being able to read documentation and understand it. Regardless of what major you end up going with, there's a good chance that the skills you've learned with Python are going to be needed or are helpful. So our hope is that you can read documentation and take advantage of code that other people have written to make your lives easier. So up until now, when we've talked about math in Python, we've basically talked about it in the most rudimentary fashion, right? We've done some simple calculations, converting between units, finding the biggest, smallest number, but we really haven't done a lot more than that. And obviously there's a lot more that computers can do. You know, you're all in Math 141 or 142, or at least most of you are. So could you use Python to calculate an integral or a derivative? Can you do some sort of fancy visualization that might help you when you're writing a paper, you want to insert some live data? Obviously the answer to all that is yes, but to do it we have to use some additional code, stuff that doesn't come by default in Python. What we're going to show you today is just a starting point. There's too much for me to go into too much detail, so what I want to do today is pique your interest, get you a little bit excited about what you can do, and then hopefully later on in life when you need these skills, you'll at least be able to go back and reference it as needed. So before we begin, the first thing we have to do is make sure that we have the modules installed. You should already have them installed, but just in case you don't, go to Tools, Manage Plugins, and type in Numpy, and then type in matplotlib. And for both of them, just make sure that you have installed the package and there isn't an update for you. So matplotlib, yeah, you should be good there. So as long as you see this, you're good to go. Alright. In addition, there are some sample datasets that we have provided you on the website. Go ahead and download those. We'll be using them throughout the course of these videos to show you different concepts. So what actually is NumPy? You can think of NumPy as a math library on steroids. Alright. The general idea in NumPy is that the data we want to analyze is stored in something called an array, which you guys know as a list in Python. An array just contains lots of values, and then you can use NumPy's various functions in order to analyze that array. So here, for example, I have just a regular Python list. I am converting all of it into an array by using this array function. And then I can do operations like calculate the sum of all the values. And I'll show you this in a minute. There are some things you may not be quite aware of in this code. For example, we've never really done this part before. This is a way to assign an alias. So sometimes I don't want to type NumPy every single time. What I can do is I can tell Python that from now on, anytime I type NP, I really mean NumPy. And this allows me to have a little bit of shorthand. And again, when I'm creating my array, the important thing is that I'm passing it a list, just our regular Python list. Alright? So we can actually do that if you go to the website and you download this. One of the things we can do right off the bat is just calculate the sum. So I could do, for example, the sum of the temp dataset. And this function automatically, just like sum does in normal Python, this will go add up all the values in the array and print them out. And then max and min are also functions that exist. Alright? So these are just some basic functions. Now let's talk about some more advanced things you can do. Alright? The full list of things you can do is actually on their website. This is the full documentation. I'm just going to show you what NumPy can do in terms of math. There it is. Tons and tons of functions. And learning how to use them is kind of what separates the novices from the experts of Python. Alright? Here, for example, is how we can do, like I showed you, finding the max, finding the min, that sort of thing. But we can do so much more, right? So for example, we can even do some basic statistics. So in the old days, if I wanted you to calculate an average, what I had to have you do was use the sum function and then divide it by the length of the data set, right? And we've done this ad nauseum, on many problems. But it turns out NumPy just has a function straight up for this. So for example, here I can say average of temp dataset. And then if I press play here, that'll just calculate the same average for me. So now that's a little bit nice, right? I can also do stuff like, let's find the median, right? So here, this is 50% of my data is above 38.5 degrees Fahrenheit. And we can also do stuff like percentiles. So if I want to find the 80th percentile of my data, which basically means what is the value, what is the temperature value where 20% of my data is above it and 80% of my data is below it. If I use this function, it'll tell me that 20% of my data is above 45.4 degrees Fahrenheit, which makes sense because there's not a lot of values that are really above that. So I think we're good there. But what's really cool about this is that Numpy actually allows me to do math on a data set all at once. So let's say, for example, here, I don't like that all of these are in Fahrenheit. I need to convert them all to Celsius. In the old days, what I would have to do is actually go and iterate through each one of them and do the math on it, right? Now what I can do is just say, I want to take this whole temp data set and I want to subtract 32 from it, and then I want to times it by what is it? I think it's 5/9. So we'll try that. All right. So then I'm going to go ahead and press play, and yeah, that makes sense to me. At 32, it's 0. At 32, it's 0. 34, it's 1 degree Celsius. Okay, so this makes sense to me. But you can see how just doing some simple math, I can do math on the entire array in just one line of code. So it's really, really powerful, right? Likewise, if I want to compare the temperature on the airfield by the temperature of the wind chill, I can just do the subtraction by subtracting the wind chill from the actual temperature. So if I do this, you can see that, oh look, here 32 minus 28 is 4, 32 minus 28 is 4, 34 minus 29 is 5. So you can actually see how I can perform large amounts of math very quickly with relatively few lines of code. Alright? You can also do calculus, and this is kind of cool. So there is something in Numpy called Poly1D, and it's a special class that they have. But basically, the way that it works is, we'll just do it here. And I'm just going to do the calculus below here. I'm just going to say my polynomial is going to be equal to np dot, and I'm going to say poly1d, and then 201. All right, and this here, this represents the highest coefficient, and then the next highest, and this is the lowest coefficient. All right, and if I was to print this out, polynomial, it looks a little confusing at first. So I press play. So this may look weird, but you're supposed to read both these lines at once. So this is 2 to the x squared plus 0x plus 1. All right, so this here represents my polynomial. Once I have a polynomial, I can do all sorts of cool things. So for example, let's say I just want to know the polynomial when x is equal to 3. So that's how I do it. I just say in parentheses, I evaluate it. So it's kind of like a little function. I'm evaluating when x equals 3. There you go. Now it's 19. Let's say that I want to get the derivative, right? So don't tell your math instructor that you can just now do it by saying polynomial.deriv. It calculates the derivative for you, and then I can even calculate, I will actually comment these out so it's not confusing, and then I will, if I can do the derivative, I can definitely do the integral. Alright, and then here, that's the integral, and that makes sense to me because I think you take the polynomial, you add 1 to the exponent, then divide it by that, so I think that's looking good there. Alright? You can even do stuff like calculate the roots of a polynomial. So I could say like polynomial.roots, right? And if I do that, that gives me my real components. Yeah, so my positive, yep, that makes sense to me. Your positive and your negative components because it's a squared function. Alright? So again, lots of cool tools that you can do that are provided to you, and you don't even have to do a lot of work for it. It just kind of comes out of the box. So I hope this has whetted your appetite a little bit. In this video, we just wanted to give you a sense of what you can do in Numpy. There's so many more functions. We can't show them to you, but we're hoping that this is enough for you to want to dive in and figure out how it works. And yeah, hopefully this is exciting. In the next video, we're going to talk about the matplotlib module and show you how you can actually visualize all of this information in some really cool ways. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.